A relationship can look close from the outside and still feel lonely on the inside. You can live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, share children, share bills, share holidays, send messages during the day, post the photo, sit at the same table, say the right things when people are watching, and still not feel close. Because closeness is not the picture, closeness is not the relationship status. It is not a number of years together. It is not how many times you text each other in one day. It is not the shared address. It is not the family routine. It is not the beautiful holiday photo where everyone looks fine. Closeness is how it feels inside the relationship. Can I relax with you? Can I be myself with you? Can I tell you the truth without being punished for it? Can we disagree without turning each other into enemies? Can we repair after the storm? Can I feel at home in your presence? Can you feel at home in mine? That is the currency of closeness. And I think this is one of the biggest missing pieces in modern relationships. We have more ways to stay in contact than ever, but many people have less capacity to stay in connection. We can message instantly, we can track each other, we can send voice notes, emojis, reels, screenshots, reminders, pictures, locations, explanations, apologies, arguments, breakups, and love declarations through screen. But the screen cannot replace presence. A message cannot replace the way someone looks at you when you are hurting. A heart emoji cannot replace repair. A shared location cannot replace trust. A long text cannot replace a real conversation where both people are willing to stay human. And this is not only about romantic relationships. This applies to friendships, children, family, work, every relationship where we confused contact with connection. Being reachable is not the same as being available. Being in the same room is not the same as being close. Being together is not the same as moving together. So let's go even deeper. Imagine a relationship like a boat sailing through the water. Both people are inside the same boat. The water changes. There are calm days. There are beautiful sunny days where everything feels easy. There are waves. There are storms. There are moments when there is no wind and you feel stuck. There are moments when one person is tired, the other is impatient, and both are looking at the sky, wondering when it will get easier. That is life. No relationship sails only on calm water. The question is not whether the waves come. The question is, are we both trying to help the boat sail? Because many relationships do not fall apart because there is no love. They fall apart because both people are pulling the boat in opposite direction and call it love. One pulls this way, the other pulls that way. One says, my way. The other says, no, my way. One pushes harder. the other resents it. Then the other pushes harder, and the first one resents it. And the whole relationship becomes a power struggle. And even when someone wins, the relationship loses. Because if I win by making you give up, I do not actually win. If you give in because you are exhausted, that is no closeness. And if I get my way and you feel unseen, that is not intimacy. If you get your way and I swallow resentment, that is not love. That is two people in the same boat forgetting that the boat matters. I was recently talking with a friend who has 3 small children and a partner who feels very distant. It is like he's in his armor. When he communicates, it often comes out as an attack, as pointing to what she's doing wrong. And from what I could hear, it's not only one person. It feels like both of them are pulling in different directions. Both trying to prove something, both trying to show who has more strength, both living in the energy of my way or no way. And from the outside, people can look at a couple and ask, whose fault is it? But that is not a useful question at all. The deeper question is, are they protecting the relationship or are they protecting their egos? Because a relationship needs shared direction, not identical desires all the time, not perfect agreement, not one person disappearing into the other. Share direction. And this means we may want different things, but we are willing to look for a way that does not sink the boat. We are willing to talk. We are willing to listen. We are willing to pause when the storm is too strong. And we are willing to ask, what works for both of us? We are willing to be uncomfortable without turning the other person into an enemy. And that is the currency of closeness. Not chemistry, not control, not who wins, not who is louder, not who can hold the silence longer, not who can make the other person feel guilty first. Closeness is the willingness to protect the relationship when your ego wants to win. And this applies everywhere. It applies to partners, but also children, to friendships, to family, to work relationships. Every relationship asks this at some point. Do I want to be right? Or do I want to stay connected to truth? Not connected at any cost. Not connected by losing myself. Not connected by tolerating disrespect. But connecting enough to stop making every disagreement a war. And that is maturity. Closeness does not mean we always agree. Closeness is not agreement. Closeness is the ability to disagree without losing respect. It's being able to say, I see this differently, without taking the other person's different view as a rejection. It is being able to hear a need without immediately defending yourself. It is being able to pause before you pour your oil on the fire. It's being able to come back to conversation when both people are calmer and actually want a solution. A mature relationship is not one where nobody gets upset. A mature relationship is one where both people care enough to stop before they wound each other for no reason. And this is one thing I really appreciate in a relationship. Having a time out world, a gesture, a shared agreement that says, we are entering the storm. We need to stop before we damage something. And that's not avoidance, that is care. It can be as simple as a shared word like red or a gentle hand on the heart that means we are both too activated to hear each other right now. And we are stepping back to protect the team. Because in the middle of emotional activation, people say things they do not even fully mean. They go for the weak spot. They use all pain. They raise their voice. They become sharp. They want to win the moment and then they create a wound that stays long after the argument is over. Love is not only what you say when you're calm. Love is also what you refuse to say when you are in the storm. That is the kind of maturity that builds closeness. Not perfect communication, real repair. Not never hurting each other, but owning it when you do. Not never needing space, but taking space without using it as a punishment. And not never having conflict, but having a conflict in a way that does not destroy the dignity of the person in front of you. And this is where we must be very honest. There is healthy friction and there is unhealthy hardship. A relationship takes work. It should not take your dignity. Healthy friction is when two people are different and need to learn each other. It is the uncomfortable conversation, the apology, the boundary, the negotiation, the learning, the moment when you realize your partner is not here to meet every expectation you silently built in your mind. The moment when you have to say what you need instead of expecting the other person to guess. The moment when you realize love requires emotional responsibility, that kind of friction can build closeness. Unhealthy hardship is different. Disrespect is not healthy friction. Contempt is not healthy friction. Humiliation is not healthy friction. Insults are not healthy friction. Control is not healthy friction. Being monitored instead of trusted is unhealthy friction. Constant criticism is not healthy friction. Emotional unavailability that never changes is not healthy friction. Abuse is not healthy friction. Fear is not healthy friction. A relationship takes work. It should not take your dignity. And I want every woman listening to hear that clearly. Do not use the idea that relationships require effort to excuse someone who keeps putting you down. Do not use the idea that love needs patience to stay where your body is constantly unsafe. Do not use the idea that we all have flaws to normalize disrespect. Acceptance is not the same as tolerating harm. I can accept that my partner is human. I can accept that he has imperfections. I can accept that there are things about him I would not personally choose as ideal because nobody is made exactly according to our fantasy. That is a part of real love. But accepting imperfection is not the same as accepting disrespect. Closeness needs acceptance, yes, but it also needs respect. For me, closeness feels like home, peace, being accepted as I am, being able to relax in relationship, being able to be myself without constantly monitoring whether I am too much, not enough, too emotional, too quiet, too independent, too needy, too direct. And it goes both ways. I also need to accept the other person as he is, not the fantasy version, not the potential version, not the version I could create if I corrected him enough, the real person. And this does not mean I love everything. Of course not. There are always things that are not ideal for us. That is normal. But Acceptance means I am not in a constant project of changing someone so I can finally relax. If I can only relax when the other person becomes someone else, that is not closeness. And if you can only love me when I become smaller, quieter, prettier, easier, more available, less honest, less me, that is not closeness either. That's performance. And that is why many relationships look close but feel lonely. Because two people are performing the relationship but not actually meeting each other. They do the routine. They answer the messages, they attend the family events, they make plans. They share responsibilities. They look fine. But there is no real meeting, no curiosity, no softness, no repair, no shared direction, no emotional safety, no feeling of we are on the same team. And without that, you can be physically close and emotionally miles away. And I know what that feels like. In my marriage, there was a time when we were working for the same goal, for the same team. And when that was there, the feelings were there too. There was connection, there was direction, there was something shared. But when we started reaching for different things, we wanted to evolve in different ways. When the shared direction was no longer there, everything began to fall apart. It started feeling like being with a stranger, like having a distant acquaintance beside you, but not a life partner. Someone you can meet occasionally, but not someone you want to build your life with. And this is such a painful realization because from the outside, the relationship can still exist, but inside, the closeness is gone. I experienced something similar after my divorce in another relationship. At first, we gave each other a lot. There was closeness, and there were periods when we did not see each other much, but I could still feel connected. So it was not about how often we met. It was not about physical time. It was about whether we were working toward the same goal. It was about whether both of us were still working for the relationship. It was about whether the relationship was still alive between us. And when that changed, I could feel it immediately. The distance was obvious, not because of geography, not because of the number of days, but because something inside the relationship was no longer being held by both people. And that taught me something important. Closeness is not proximity. Closeness is shared intention. You can sit next to someone and feel completely alone. You can be apart and still feel deeply connected. The difference is not the distance between your bodies. The difference is the distance between your hearts, your honesty, your willingness, your direction. And this is where modern relationships get complicated. A lot of people say they want love, but they are mainly looking at what looks good. The looks, the body, the car, the house, the status, the image, the lifestyle, the feeling of being chosen by someone desirable, the outside picture. And I understand attraction matters. Of course it matters. We're human. Physical attraction exists, right? Lifestyle compatibility matters. Safety matters. Shared values matters. But if you choose someone mainly for what looks good from the outside, you will eventually have to live with what it feels like on the inside. Looks change, bodies age. The exciting image becomes everyday life. The impressive car will not hold you when you cry. The perfect body will not repair after conflict. The status will not create emotional safety. The public image will not make you feel at home if the private reality feels cold. I have said this to my daughter too. If someone wants you only because of how you look, you have already lost. Because the look will change. Aging is a part of life. You do not want to fight that forever. You do not want to be loved only for something that time is supposed to change. And this is not only about women being chosen for beauty, it goes both ways. People judge men by what they own, what they drive, how much they earn, whether they look successful from the outside. And yes, stability matters, responsibility matters. Being able to stand on your own feet matters. But a person is not a car. A person is not a house. A person is not an income. A person is not an image. If you build a relationship mainly on symbols, do not be surprised when it feels empty behind the symbol. Because what most people truly want is not only attraction, they want safety, they want attention, they want validation, they want to be chosen, they want to feel important, they do not want to be alone. And here is where it becomes dangerous. Many people would rather be in a relationship that is not working than be alone. And I understand the fear, but fear of being alone is not a foundation for closeness. If you cannot be alone, you will start accepting things you just to avoid yourself. You will call attachment love. You will call anxiety passion. You will call control care. You will call crumbs connection. You will call the absence of living commitment. And then the relationship becomes a place where two people hold each other hostage with their unhealed fears. And that's not closeness. That is survival with romance around it. Real closeness requires enough self-trust to choose connection, not dependency. It requires enough inner safety to say, I want you, but I do not need to disappear in order to keep you. And this is also where screens have changed relationships. Screens are not bad. They help us. They make logistics safer. They help parents organize family life. They let us send a loving message during the day. They let us reach someone quickly. They let us share something sweet in a second instead of waiting for a letter in the post. And that's beautiful. But screens also create distance from impact. And when people do not feel the impact of their words, they lose respect. I have spent my career studying human behavior, corporate dynamics, and personal growth, but even I was fascinated by this shift when I first stepped into the online space to share my coaching. Before that, I was not living so much online, and then suddenly I started receiving messages from people I did not know. Disrespectful messages, even disrespectful videos, things they would probably never say or show if they were standing in front of me in person. But behind the screen, people become bold in a way that is not courage, it is distance. And the same thing happens in relationships. People write things they would never say while looking into someone's eyes. They send harsh messages because they do not have to feel the other person's face change. They end relationships through text because they do not want to sit in the discomfort of real ending. They ghost because disappearing feels easier than telling the truth. They argue through messages because they can keep throwing words without noticing the wound they are creating. And then they call it communication. But not every exchange of words is communication. Not every message is connection. Not every immediate answer is presence. A screen can support a relationship, but it cannot become the place where all courage goes to die. And the location sharing thing fascinates me too. I see younger people treating it as normal that someone they are dating should know where they are at all times. Share the location, track the movement, know exactly where the other person is. And I look at that and think, no, that is not the foundation of healthy relationship. Trust is, respect is, emotional maturity is. If someone needs to track you to feel safe, that is not closeness. That is anxiety looking for control. And control dressed as care is still control. Of course, there are practical situations where sharing location makes sense, like safety, travel, logistic, family coordination. And I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the belief that love means constant access, that trust means proof, that closeness means being monitored. That is not closeness. That is surveillance with a romantic excuse. A real intimacy cannot grow where there's no trust. This is why the currency of closeness is so different from what people think. It's not constant contact. It's not perfect attraction. It's not being available every second. It's not sharing every password, every location, every thought, every private part of your life. It's not never disagreeing. It's not never needing space. It's not one person getting absorbed into the other. The currency of closeness is presence, respect, repair, trust, shared direction, the ability to pause before you harm, the ability to tell the truth without a weapon, the ability to apologize without making it a performance, the ability to hear your partner without immediately defending your ego, the ability to ask, what does the boat need? Instead of, how do I win? What does the boat need? Not what does my ego need right now. Not how do I prove my point. Not how do I make sure I am the one who wins. Not how do I punish you for not giving me what I wanted. What does the boat want? Does it need to pause? Does it need honesty? Does it need an apology? Does it need a boundary? Does it need rest? Does it need a difficult conversation? Does it need one person to stop pulling so hard? Does it need both of us to admit we have been fighting each other instead of caring for the relationship? And this applies to romantic love, and it applies everywhere with children. The question is, am I trying to control them, or am I trying to guide the relationship so they can grow? With a friend, the question is, am I keeping score, or am I willing to speak honestly? With family, the question is, am I staying silent for peace, or am I building resentment that will poison the connection? At work, the question is, am I defending my position, or am I trying to create something that works? Every relationship has a boat, and every relationship asks whether we are mature enough to care about more than winning. This does not mean staying in every boat. Some boats are unsafe. Some boats have one person drilling holes while the other keeps trying to save it. Some boats are built on disrespect, control, fear, or contempt. Living can be the most honest thing. Living can be the most loving thing toward yourself. But before we call every wave a reason to live, we need to ask if the wave is unhealthy harm or healthy friction. Because healthy friction is a part of real closeness. You will disagree, you will misunderstand, you will hurt each other without meaning to. You will need to repair. You will need to learn how the other person works. You will need to face your own ego. You will need to meet the parts of yourself that want to hurt, attack, withdraw, win, punish, or disappear. Relationships reveal us. This is why they are hard, and that is why they are powerful. They show us where we are still defended, when we are still where we still want control, where we confuse being loved with being obeyed, where we confuse safety with sameness, where we want the other person to never trigger us, never, instead of learning how to stay with ourselves when we are triggered. The right relationship will not remove every uncomfortable part of human being. It will give you a place where both people are willing to meet those parts with respect. That is closeness, not perfection, not constant peace, not the absence of storms. A boat can survive weather because both people know they are on the same side. So ask yourself, do I feel close or do we only look close? Am I trying to win inside this relationship or am I helping the boat sail? Do I feel accepted as I am? And do I accept the other person as they are? Can we disagree without punishing each other? Can we pause when the storm gets too strong? Can we repair after we hurt each other? Can we talk about what matters or do we only manage logistics? Am I using screens to support connection or to avoid presence? Am I mistaking control for care? Am I choosing the image of love or the experience of closeness? Am I staying because I want to build or because I'm afraid to be alone? These questions are not here to judge you. They are here to wake you up. Because the goal is not to have a relationship that looks close. The goal is to build one that feels true. And if this episode opens something in you around feeling not enough, fear of being judged, or staying in patterns that keep you away from yourself, I have a free workbook linked below this episode called The Real Reason You Feel Not Enough. It's a gentle place to start seeing the stories that shape how you show up in love and in life. And if fear of judgment is one of the reasons you silence yourself or perform closeness instead of living it, you will also find my simple course on judgment there. Because the relationship you build with another person will always reflect the relationship you have with yourself. If you cannot hear yourself, you will struggle to be heard. If you abandon yourself, you will call distance love. If you do not trust yourself, you will look for control outside. If you do not know how to come home to yourself, you will ask another person to become your home and then resent them when they cannot carry it. Real closeness does not ask you to disappear. It asks you to arrive as yourself with truth, with respect, with maturity, with the willingness to repair, with the courage to stay present when your ego wants to win. So stop asking only whether the relationship looks good, either whether the boat still sails. Ask whether both of you are willing to protect it. Ask whether there is still shared direction. Ask whether there is respect. Ask whether there is room to be human. Because the currency of closeness is not the perfect picture. It's not constant contact. It's not control. It's not chemistry alone. It is the quiet, daily willingness to meet each other in truth and still care about the boat. Welcome home.